What's up, guys? This is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and today I am finally able to bring all of you guys my 3.5 Axis Fire Fist deck profile. So, I was finally able to wrestle most of my stuff through from the mail, because frankly, this profile has been delayed for so long due to the mail that I just really wanted to get this done, get it out there. As you guys see in a second, there is a proxy, I should say, and but still, I finally was able to get the deck in my hands, and I'm able to finally bring this profile to all of you guys, so that's always nice. And a little disclaimer, I guess you could say really quick at the start of this video. I know part of the extra deck is sleeved differently. The reason for that is because there is quite a few deck-specific extra deck monsters that I put in my decks, and they're not usually my general use extra deck monsters. Most of my general use extra deck monsters, where I'll be needing to constantly swap them between decks, are sleeved in this double sleeve because, in my opinion, I think this Neptunia sleeve looks really, really nice, and well, that's what I use for my double sleeve. But just as an FYI, that's the reason why some of the extra deck is double sleeve. It's because I like to rotate my extra decks between other decks, so that's the reason why. And then usually the specific extra deck monsters for specific decks, like this Fire Fist monsters, are usually going to be sleeved in like this regular sleeve. So just a heads up. So, enough of me rambling already. I've been rambling enough, about 1 minute 30 already. So let's just jump into the deck profile immediately. Alright, so starting us off, we got the 3 Brotherhood of the Firefist Spirit. It is the thing that came immediately off the ban list from limited to unlimited. So, well, now we can just spam our synchros and or our rank 3s just that much quicker, as Spirit essentially is a 1-card XYZ play or a 1-card synchro play. And speaking of that synchro play, it usually will be able to net us at least a +2, I believe, or it's something nuts. Spirit is the one that you want to combo with to get you your pluses and keep getting you your advantage in this deck. So we have to run 3 Spirit. Following Spirit, we have the combo that goes with Spirit just so perfectly. We have the 3 Brotherhood of the Firefist Leopard. Leopard is essentially a lone Fire Blossom for any of our Fire Formation spell cards, as well as Leopard is one of our important combo pieces to go along with Spirit, so that we can go into our Horse Prince or our Vulcan. So we have the Leopard. Finally, for the last 3-axis part of this deck, we have the 2 Brotherhood of the Firefist Rooster. Rooster is the one that will help us keep getting our Brotherhood of the Firefist searches out from our deck whenever he is special summoned by a Fire Fist. And he also can help us get away our used fire formations off of our field, and we can reset new ones. So he'll also keep netting us advantage through that. I really didn't feel like 3 was necessary, as once you start seeing 1, you'll be constantly recycling him with things like Spirit and whatnot. So really, 3 is a bit much, and so I just have him at 2. So that is it for the 3-axis component of our deck. Moving on to the 4-axis, we have 2 Brotherhood of the Firefist Bear. Bear is very much searchable like a lot of the other things in this deck, so I didn't feel like 3 is necessary. 2 is just fine for me, as well as Bear is a pretty darn convenient and easy to summon Jin out, as all you have to basically do is summon Bear with a Fire Formation and you can pop the Jin lock. So that's always pretty nice. And I should mention, while we're on Bear, that this deck actually does have a fairly decent Necroz matchup, because you don't really fear the Jin lock or any of their power plays, as you usually will be able to salvage outs for them. So yeah, that's why Bear is actually really, really good in this deck. And again, like I said, you don't need 3 because you can, like everything basically in this deck, you can search him pretty easy. So 2 is just fine. Next up, for another 4-axis part of our deck, we have the 1 Brotherhood of the Firefist Gorilla. Gorilla is here just because, again, we can't search it, and he isn't as important to the deck as you might think, as there isn't really much spell and trap removal that we necessarily need. So we only do have the 1 Gorilla because, frankly, I've never wanted more than 2, and I don't want to draw into him, as I'd rather draw into tons of other things, and I'd rather search him out whenever I do need him. So that's why I only do run the 1. Now then, finally, for the last 2 monsters, we have to run the 2 Coach Soldier Wolfbark, because Wolfbark is the one that will get us into our rank 4s whenever we do decide to go into them. I will say, though, that we won't be going into the rank 4s all that often, as the 3-axis is very, in my opinion, very much more powerful. But having the Wolfbark axis doesn't hurt, as getting into our rank 4s like our Castels or our Tiger Kings always is very nice, too. So we do have the 2 Wolfbark. So that is it for the very, I guess you could say, small monster lineup. Moving on to the spell lineup, we start off with the 3 fire information. Tenki, obviously, because Tenki searches out everything in the deck. Why would we not have 3 of our search card, basically? So yeah, we do have the 3 Tenki. In that same respect, we also do run the 3 fire formation Tensu because, again, why are we not going to run 3 Tensu in a Fire Fist deck, really? There isn't much more I have to say. And also, Tensu, in my opinion, is really, really important because it normal summons an additional Fire Fist monster. So having that ability, or not, well, it's not specifically Fire Fist, but basically Fire Fist within this deck. And what this essentially does is it helps you get around the Jinlock really easy, as with this card, you don't necessarily have to special summon, as you can also still get board presence without your special summons with Tensu, which is also pretty convenient. So we do have the 3 Tensu. Finally, for the last fire formations we do run in the deck, we do run the 2 fire formation Gyoko. We have the 2 Gyoko in here to fill in as MSTs, as really in this day and age, there isn't a lot of I guess you could say important floodgates that we have to worry about, especially in this deck. So we only have the 2 Gyoko as MST replacements, I guess, because there is just a lot of reactive spells in this format. So having the ability to activate Gyoko, target their reactive spell, and not let them chain off of Gyoko is always pretty darn nice, because you don't want to get Book of Eclipse at the wrong time. So we do have the 2 Gyoko. Going on to the non-fire formation spells, we go into 3 Upstart Goblin, because we want consistency within this deck. We want to be able to search into our spirit, or excuse me, not search, but draw into our spirit combos, or just our powerful monsters in general. So we do have the 3 Upstart to help us with that consistency. Speaking of consistency, we also run 2 Pot of Duality, just because we don't always necessarily need our special summon unless we're comboing off of Spirit. So we do have the 2 Duality because we want to search into, we want to dig for our Fire Formations or our Fire Fist Bears or whatnot, just that much easier. And again, it also couples well with Tensu, as you don't need to special summon with Tensu. As I said, you can just normal summon again. So Duality doesn't hurt us as much as we might think. So we can run Duality to help us dig through our deck just that much faster. So we do have these 2 Duality. Next up, we do have the 1 Rekindling, because within this deck, this essentially is a soul charge for no cost, because what it does is it revives as many monsters from your graveyard that have 200 defense, fire monsters, I should say. So, Fire Fist of the Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Spirit, as well as Leopard, both only have 200 defense. So, with your combos, you'll be cycling through them into your graveyard pretty darn quick. So with Rekindling, you'll literally be able to summon them all back for no cost. So that's always really, really nice, as you can just really make huge boards just with this 1 card. Finally, for the last 2 spells, we of course play the staples, which is the 1 Book of Moon and the 1 Raigeki. They're really self-explanatory. I don't have to really go over them. They're just really, really good. So that is it for the spell cards of this main deck. We go on to the traps now. We start off with 3 Mind Crush. Really, in my opinion, any rogue deck that is trying to compete whatsoever in this meta should run triple Mind Crush in the main board, as there is just tons and tons of decks now that search quite a bit. So having the ability to Mind Crush our opponent and just rip cards out of their hand that they might need later is always very nice, as well as even if we call them wrong, having the ability to look at our opponent's hand at the very least also just gives us just that much more knowledge to abuse whenever we play against these search heavy decks. So we do have the 3 Mind Crush. Moving on, we have the 2 Mirror Force, because Mirror Force is getting a resurgence, as you always will have been saying, so having the 2 Mirror Force for defense always is really nice. Then we follow that up with 2 Breakthrough Skill, because we don't want our opponent's Manjus or our opponent's Trishulas or any of the crazy stuff going off. So we have to have Breakthroughs for just general effect negation. Finally, for the last 4 traps, we just do run 4 one-of traps in the form of 1 Bottomless, 1 Compulse, 1 Ring, and 1 Solemn, because they're all actually very good this format, as Compulse, Ring, and Solemn are all pretty good Jin outs, and Bottomless is there for whenever our opponents might Pendulum summon. So we do have these last 4 traps to round off our main deck. So, moving on to the extra deck, we start off with the double Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Horse Prince, and there is that 1 proxy I was speaking about earlier. So, Horse Prince is our go-to combo synchro. He is the one that we want to go in as much as we possibly can, Because what he will do is he'll special summon a level 3 fire monster from our deck, and that monster usually will be our Brotherhood of the Fireface Rooster. And subsequently, Rooster will get us also another search. So, as you guys can see, Horse Prince is the one that we want to combo into, as he will just keep generating us our advantage with Rooster and searches off of Rooster. And to top that all off, we also can have Rooster swapping out our fire formations. So again, those fire formations will also keep netting us advantage. So this will just keep getting us just tons and tons of advantage over our opponents. So we want to keep going into our Horse Princes as much as we can. So we do run the 2 Horse Prince. Following Horse Prince, we do run our other 2 Synchros of the deck. We do run 2 Vulcan the Divine. Vulcan is in here because you can essentially get him to be a freaking pulse. As what he does is that whenever he is Synchro Summoned, I can target one face-up card on my field and one face-up card on our opponent's field and bounce both targets. Because we do run a ton of fire formations on our field, they become valid targets for Vulcan. And in that way, we can actually bounce our fire formations on our field back to our hand to bounce something on our opponent's side of the field, and then we can always reactivate our fire formations. So essentially, we're getting another plus off of Vulcan too. So again, we have to have Vulcan in here just because he is like that. He can help bounce our opponent's monsters off of the board and essentially not hinder us at all. So we do have the 2 Vulcan. Alright, so moving on to the XYZs. For the Brotherhood of the Fireface XYZs, we start off with the 1 Line Emperor, because Line Emperor will help us recycle our spirits and whatnot, so we should run one of him at very least. We then go into the 1 Brotherhood of the Fireface Cardinal, because Cardinal is a Tiramisu for a Fire Fist, so that's pretty darn cool in my opinion. So we have the 1 Cardinal because it also helps us recycle our fire formations from our graveyard, so that's always nice. And then finally, for the last Brotherhood of the Firefish XYZ we do run the 1 Tiger King. I never felt like I needed more than 1 Tiger King. I never found myself in the situation where I needed a second one. So really, 1 is just fine, as these rank 4 Brotherhood of the Firefish monsters are the ones we will go into the least. So, but still, just having the 1 just for whenever we might need it is always very nice. Moving on to the more generic rank 4s, we start off with the 1 Diamond Dire because, well, everything is a Beast Warrior in this deck, so having Diamond Dire for that simple removal is always very helpful. We then have the 1 Castel because spinning stuff back to the deck is always fun. We have the 1 Evil Swarm Exeton Knight to try and help us generate advantage over our opponent when they have plus over us. We have the 1 Dark Rebellion to get over any huge threats that we can't normally get over. We have the 1 Daigusto Emerald to help us recycle our monsters whenever we get too many of them sent to grave. We have the 1 Dweller to stop our Shadows and our Burning Abyss opponents from getting their effects. We have the 1 Heartland Draco because we do run quite a few continuous spells, so we can run Heartland Draco in this deck fairly effectively. And then, of course, we have the last rank 3 in our deck, which is the 1 Mech-Whipped Engineer, just for general walling purposes. Alright guys, well, that is it for my Fireface deck profile, my 3.5 axis deck, Fireface deck profile I should say. I hope you all did enjoy, and again, if you have any suggestions or comments on this deck, always feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. And as always, this is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and I have to get to class pretty darn soon, so I'll see all of you guys later. Peace out.